Maybe today I'll start a little different. Maybe not a recap of where we're headed, but maybe a little confession. After I initially learned and shared what was to become what everyone heard in the Ezer and Zakar series, Lisa and I had a moment in our kitchens. A regular Tuesday, nothing crazy dramatic was happening, but I caught myself in the middle of this moment doing some of that exact shadow behavior I just spent all that time learning about and then sharing with her. She just kind of looked at me and she said, "Are you trying to manage me right now?" Teaching a framework, learning a framework, and living it are two completely different disciplines. You can know this material inside and out and still get caught by your own shadow on a Tuesday, everybody.
And that alone, dude, is a perfect frame for today.
That's why today is not going to be a review of what we taught everyone. It's going to be what happens after the teaching, after the learning, in the real kitchens, in your real marriages, in your real relationships. And in my case, I'm going to tell you a story I've never told all the way through on this show. Every person who's ever felt stuck in their career, their leadership, or their life has one thing in common.
They're one breakthrough away from changing everything.
Welcome to the Breakthrough Bros podcast. I'm Jeremy Flagg.
And hey, I'm Henry Ballard. Between the two of us, we've spent decades coaching individuals and helping leaders navigate mindset shifts that create real, lasting change.
Each episode, we bring you practical conversations designed to sharpen your thinking, strengthen your leadership, and help you move forward with clarity and confidence.
Because sometimes the biggest thing standing between you and your next level
is simply a breakthrough in how you think. Welcome back, everyone, to the Breakthrough Bros podcast. Hey, we're really excited that you joined us today in our second of 3 question and answer episodes that we're giving you from 6 months of content that we've had since January. You guys asked a lot of questions. We've got a lot of answers, right, Henry? We're ready to go.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to have some good times today. We got some pretty difficult ones today, but some good ones. I think you're going to enjoy all these cool questions. And maybe today I'll start a little different, Henry. Maybe not a recap of where we're headed, but maybe a little confession about what's coming up in this episode. You know what I'm saying? Maybe a little bit of a confession.
Okay, that already has my attention. Let's it's confessional time, everybody.
Confessional time. Yeah, man, after I initially learned and shared what was to become what everyone heard in the Ezer and Zakar series. So this would have been back in mid 2000s ish, right? Late 2000s. And Lisa and I had a moment in our kitchen. So Lisa, of course, my wife, is the first one to hear all these things that I come up with, right? God bless her. She hears all the different iterations and all the versions, right? But this was pretty dramatic, the stuff that I was learning, and it was reorienting our systems quite a bit. So she was, it was easy to pay attention when I was so passionate about what I was learning. But we were in our kitchen, on a regular Tuesday, an ordinary Tuesday. Nothing crazy dramatic was happening, right? But I caught myself in the middle of this moment doing some of that exact shadow behavior I just spent all that time learning about and then sharing with her.
Wow.
Yeah, it happens.
Curious, which one
Which shadow?
particular?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh boy. I think it was for sure. It was probably, I was exhibiting some control. So I was support sliding into control the way we taught it, right? I was helping her with something that she hadn't asked help for with, you know what I'm saying? And she just kind of looked at me and she said, "Are you trying to manage me right now?" Of course, implying, didn't you just teach me about those cool functions, all that Zakar stuff? Are you really trying to do this right now?
Listen, dude, when you said that, what she said, "Are you trying to manage me?"
Yeah.
As brutal as that question is, I visualize Lisa saying it.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like,
Of course. Yeah.
so yeah, but that's brutal, man. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's brutal, but I mean, she was exactly right, right? And it reiterated an important point that I wanted to share here at the top of our next question and answer episode, because today's question and answers are coming largely from our Ezer Zakar framework work that we did in May and June.
Hmm.
It reiterates an important point that I wanted to remind everyone about, but teaching a framework, learning a framework, and living it are two completely different disciplines, right?
Man, say that again.
Right. Teaching and learning a framework and then living it are two
Yeah.
completely different disciplines, two completely different skills.
Yeah.
You can know this material inside and out, right? And still get caught by your own shadow on a Tuesday, everybody. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened to me. And I just wanted to, frame where we're headed today with an idea that just because you know information doesn't mean you're always doing the right thing.
Yeah, yeah. And that alone, dude, is a perfect frame for today. Because the questions that, we have from the series, they weren't mostly explain the Ezer again or explain the Zakar again. No, they were, now that I see this in myself, what do I actually do with it? Because as you said, it's one thing to have the framework. And like I said, we can journal it down. We can, if you're like me, you can get a frame for it, put it on your wall. That's my framework that I'm living by. But again, what do I do with it? And so I think that that's why this is so important.
That's really good. And it's exactly right. I mean, that's why today is not going to be a review of what we taught everyone. It's going to be what happens after the teaching,
Yeah.
after the learning, in the real kitchens, in your real marriages, in your real relationships. And in my case, I'm going to tell you a story I've never told all the way through on this show. So that's happening today. Get ready.
Yeah. We teased it and we're going to bring it to them today. So let's get into it. Question number 1, listener response to she was built for this.
Okay.
Here it is. I shared the Ezer series with my husband. He listened, he agreed, and nothing changed. How do I introduce this framework to someone without it becoming a lecture? And I like this second part of how the listener framed it, or a weapon. So how do I introduce this framework to someone without it becoming a lecture? And more importantly, without weaponizing it or it becoming a weapon?
Okay. So if I'm hearing this right, our listener is asking, I liked the framework, but how do I get my partner or the other part of my relationship on board? Right.
Yes.
And how do I drop this info without it sounding like, I'm hitting someone over the head with it. I'm lecturing them, or I'm weaponizing. Okay. Interesting word choices. Really good.
Yeah.
It's a practical question, right? It's a good question for the whole series because a lot of people heard what we taught and then immediately thought, I need my spouse to hear this. Have you ever done that?
Listening for the other person. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's completely understandable. But here's what we have to be cautious about for our viewers and our listeners. It can also be a trap.
Yeah, it can be a trap. All right. Yeah. Because the moment that something that you're learning, or this framework particularly, right, becomes something that you're using to evaluate someone else or your partner particularly, then it stops being something that you're using for your own personal growth and it's becoming a scoreboard between you and your partner.
Yeah.
And nobody grows with a scoreboard in the room.
Man, dude, I know I've lived that.
Well, we all have at some point. Yeah.
The scoreboard says the scoreboard might say you winning, but but that
no.
could be so further from the truth. So very practically today, particularly for this listener, and as I've said in the past, what's instructive for one is instructive for all, because they're not the only ones that's asking these questions. So how do you share it without it landing as criticism?
Okay. So you know how I like to work in threes. So I've always got 3 things in my mind. I don't know how my mind works that way, everybody. It just does. It's just a fun thing, right? But 3
Yes.
principles are on the top of my head. First thing is share your own story with the material.
Mm,
Share what it did for you, what it did inside you, what it did to you, what shifted when you heard it. Don't try to diagnose your partner with the story. Don't try to diagnose your partner with the material, right? Just share how
yeah.
it affected you first, right? Because when you share your own transformation, then you can make space for them to be invited into theirs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you share, if you share that you feel like they're deficient in something that you just heard, then you're going to trigger a defense mechanism in them and things will not go well from there, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
first thought. My second
Okay.
thought is ask. Don't assume and don't assign. Ask, right? Instead of, hey man, you need to be more like this. Listen to this, right? Try, hey, I heard this concept on a podcast and it made me think about us. And I'd kind of love to
Mm,
know what you think.
yeah.
Curiosity will open more doors. Curiosity will create an openness and a safety in the conversation that if you try to instruct or correct someone will close. Are you with
Yeah.
me so far? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, Henry and I could spend a whole episode on why questions open all the doors and why your comments are ruining your relationships. In fact, maybe we should, Henry, spend a good amount of time on that because that's what we do as coaches. We can't have a session with a client if we are constantly commenting on what they're giving us. We
Yeah.
want to create a space where they feel they can answer and wrestle with
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that they're growing into and what they're
Mm-hmm.
growing around. So this is an important key distinction. Ask, don't assume, ask, don't assign, right? And remember the first one, share your own story. Don't diagnose them with things that you just learned. And the third thing is the most obvious thing, time. Give
Yeah.
it some, you
Yeah.
just heard it. I mean, give it some time. Stay in your own lane. Apply it to your own life for a while. The most powerful thing you can probably do with a new framework like the ones we gave you in May and June is to embody the new information.
Yeah.
Because that's changing the pattern already. When your partner watches you living from your design, I mean, it's never going to be perfect. Like I mentioned at the top of the episode here, you're going to have a random Tuesday where you're functioning in your shadow, right?
Right. Right.
But if you're genuinely approaching it with your own personal authenticity and you're trying your best to do what it is that you've been made to do, that becomes more persuasive than anything that I can mention on a podcast, anything Henry can teach to them, right? Because any episode you send them is going to pale in comparison to you living new information and living a new way right in front of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's powerful. I think about a lot of the coaching that I've done, particularly with couples, and especially whether it was in person or virtual, but we would sit and we would work through the coaching session. I'll introduce frameworks, and they'll be like, "Man, this is awesome. This is great." And somewhere along the line, somewhere on the journey, I turn to them and I say this, and it'll be directed to either one. I say, "Now, Wednesday, they're going to do something to piss you off. Can we just acknowledge that right now? Because
Yes,
I don't want you to leave here thinking today because now you have this framework. Oh, that's it. We're good to
we're
go.
done.
No, it's going to be challenged. It's going to be, you're going to have to work it. You're going to have to live it, and in real time.
Yep.
And so don't think because Wednesday afternoon, now something is happening that's contrary to the framework. Don't toss the framework and don't kind of condemn the person. It's going to happen. You got to work through it. It has to become, and we talked about this in previous episodes, it has to become a new habit. It has to be those reps that we talked about. We answered that question in the previous episode, putting in the reps.
Yeah.
And so the framework can't be a demand. It has to be an invitation.
That's good, man. Invitation is definitely the word. And sometimes, like we've been mentioning on this answer, sometimes the invitation is just you changing, you transforming. and then they notice. That's the invitation. And that's
Yeah,
probably the best
yeah.
way that you can introduce new things that you're learning to your partner and the people that are closest to you.
Before I get to question 2, can I channel our friend Marianne Williamson and
Yeah, of
the
course.
Course on Miracles?
Yeah.
Only what you're not giving can be lacking or missing in any situation.
That's right. That's right.
Only what you're not giving. So even with what Jeremy just said, focus on how are you changing? What are
Mhm.
you doing differently? That I believe even creates an invitation for them, because I often say when you change, now how that other person responds to you and deals with you has to be according to the new you or the change that you're putting forth.
That's
So,
good, man.
all,
Yeah.
all of that was for free. All right. Question number two, listener response. And I like this one because, it comes from the he was built for this series.
Yeah.
And here's what it says. You talked about the Zakar man as the foundation, that constant reassurance. But my husband shows love through acts of service. I show love through words.
Mhm.
This is love language
Yes.
context.
I'm familiar.
So,
Yeah.
are love languages and your framework complementary or intention? That's a real good question, man. It
Yeah.
really is.
It is a good
Yeah.
question. I mean, so the quick answer is yes, they're complementary. They're not in conflict with one another. They're describing different layers of a relationship, different layers of a person in a relationship. And let me first say too that I'm very familiar with love languages. In fact, Dr. Gary Chapman's book, The Five Love Languages, was probably one of the first breakthroughs that I accessed in my own marriage. I mean, we were 3 years in. We were regularly fighting and having difficulty communicating with one another how it is that, because we were running on empty. I didn't know it then, but after I read the book, it was one of those books that I devoured in like hours. You know what I mean? I was tearing through that book looking for an answer to solve this problem between me and Lisa, because I was like, man, this is terrible. We can't be functioning like this. This isn't working. You know what I mean? And I read all of the love language book and I applied it that night. I mean, I remember thinking, because he had a test in the book. Remember, he still does, I'm sure, but there was like a little survey or a little test you could take to find out what your languages were. And then you could take it from the perspective of your spouse and be like, okay, well, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm a words person and she's an acts of service person. And I am speaking my language to her all of the time and it's not landing, right? And she is speaking her language to me all the time and it's not landing. So I'm going to break the pattern. And I mean, I remember she caught me. She came home from work and I was vacuuming the living room. And I'll never forget it because I, I was just vacuuming and trying to serve my wife in a new way. Cause immediately I understood the concept. It was, the idea that she spoke a different language than I did and she would receive it differently, than I would. And I immediately went to work and I just started vacuuming, dusting the living room, cleaning it up. She caught me in the middle of this act when she came home from work. And she said, "You've never looked sexier to me than you do right now." And I was like, well, if that's all it takes, right? But it's kind of funny.
Look, forget about the 6-pack. I ain't got to be stressing myself on that.
That's right.
Yeah,
Dad bod and service beats a 6-pack every day. So,
But man,
just,
let me say this. Let me interject that, because even with Zena, I remember one time in particular, I think it was for her birthday. And I did a couple of things. And I figured she liked getting massages at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. So
nice.
I would
Yeah.
get her, figure I'm trying to win husband of the year, so I figure I'd get her, get her a massage at the Ritz-Carlton and do that. And so I went and got the gift card. They put it in a nice bag, nice package, and so had it in there. But at this time, and this was years ago, we had rental property. And for our rental property, we have to pay taxes on that, the taxes on the property every year. And so I had done a lot of speaking that year and was able to, bank some money, save some money, or what have you. Because again, I know what my wife likes, I know what moves her. And so I went down to our sheriff's office, the tax office, and I paid for the taxes for 2 of the rental properties, got the receipts, and had it stamped and all of that. So I put it inside of the bag, the Ritz-Carlton's bag.
Okay.
Now the gift card was on top, the receipts were on the bottom. So when I presented it to her, she was like, "Oh, well, thank you." And she took the bag and she said thank you, and she set it down. I'm like, okay. So I'm waiting. So I said, "You're not gonna open it?" "Well, I know you got me a massage and that's what I like or whatever." So I'm like, "Just open the bag." So she opened it. She saw the card. She kept going. She looked at the 2 receipts from the paid taxes. Dude, she went from one side of the room to the other one and could have literally jumped in my lap. It's like, oh my God. Like, dude, if I could have saved my money on Ritz-Carlton if I knew that's the
Right. Now I'm saying, yeah.
But I tell that story because, again, when you talk about what you may view love as, or just appreciation, or being engaged, or doing what that person cares about, or what resonates with that person at any given time, however they're wired, it's not always the same as what will move you.
That's right.
And to learn that and to know that is invaluable.
It is invaluable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's answer this a little more thoroughly for our audience, right? The love languages that we're referring to, there are 5 of them. They describe how someone prefers to give and receive affection, or like they have a dialect of love, right? That feels most natural to them. So that's real. And it matters, as you just found out through our 2 stories, it matters enormously in your closest relationships. And the Ezer and Zakar frameworks that we taught are describing something deeper than preferences of language of love. They're describing the design of your identity, the underlying architecture of how you're built to move through the world and in relationships. So it's a slightly different, they're operating on different levels. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Totally different levels. And I think that when we understand that, and we are able to look at it from that perspective, then that's when things begin to change. So definitely different levels.
Yeah. So think of it like this. The Zakar foundation function is a constant reassurance, right? The steady underneath presence that says this will hold, the foundation of the house that we described, right? But how that reassurance is expressed might look like acts of service for the man, quality time for another, right? Words of affirmation we already mentioned. Gifts are also another language. Physical touch is the last. So I just, hey, I know the framework. I know love languages, believe me, right?
Right.
The function is the same, but the love language would be the accent or how it gets communicated. So I'm expressing reassurance and support by being the foundation, but how I express it to my Ezer is different. How I express it to my partner, my wife, my spouse is different based on what she needs to receive from me. So one of the complaints I got before I gave you that story, by the way, I mean, she knew right away I must have read something or did something, because she was like, I mean, that didn't happen, right?
Right.
So what was this about? And then, of course, I let her read it, and then she was like, this makes the most sense that I've ever heard, because you would say you loved me like 40 times a day, and it didn't matter to me. But you cleaned the bathroom, and I felt more love than I'd ever felt, right? You know what I mean? So it's like or made dinner, or or cleaned the living room, whatever it was that was bothering, that was on her plate, on the to-do list, that I could take off of
Mm-hmm.
there for her. It
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
always a huge appreciation for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the same, by the way, the flip side is also true. The Ezer is giving constant admiration and appreciation to the foundation, to the Zakar, right? That's that framework that we gave you back in May, right? And her job is to, offer that from the kindness of her soul. But again, how she communicates it to him can be a different language, right? If she receives acts of service, uh, and she feels love that way, and I receive words of affirmation, then it would be her dialect toward me to give me words of affirmation, if she wants it to land, right? If she wants me to feel loved, then she knows, let's write it down somewhere, let's write him a note, let's send him a text. You know what I mean? Something written, by the way, is a lot nicer
Yeah.
than something verbal. For those of you
Yeah.
that are wondering, I'm also a physical touch person, and that doesn't mean sex, everybody.
Right.
But
Right.
like, you know, give me a hug in the morning, touch on the shoulder. You know what I mean? Um, Playfulness is always fun, but words of affirmation are my primary deal. So if
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Lisa wants to communicate appreciation to me, or admiration for anything that's going on, she'll give me something, a card or a note, or a little written. Sometimes she sends me an email. So I mean, there's fun things that you can do with one another, but they are not in tension at all with one another. One is playing at the level of your identity, and the
Yeah.
other one is how you express love to your partner. You need both. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. You need both, and to not understand you need both. Again, you would think, but I'm doing this, but I'm doing this,
Right.
or as if this is enough, whatever. And in all things being equal, when you are on the giving end, you have to recognize it's not about you.
Yes,
It's
sir.
about the other person. Man, before we move, I was thinking about, as you were talking about it, in a book that I wrote several years ago that's titled Love Unleashed. And one of the chapters in the book is titled The One Question That Changed Everything. Now, this book was birthed out of a real challenging time that Zena and I went through. And, you know, we're 28 years in now, but we're talking in the single digit years, it was tough. And we sat down and talked with someone. And he asked Zena, "What do you want from him?" And Zena's response was, I just want him to love me. And
Mm,
here's the one question that changed it all, and that's how it became a chapter in the book.
hmm.
He asked her, "And what is that? And what is that?" Because if I ask him right now, "Does he love you?" he would no doubt say yes. And you just said that, with Lisa, you can say it
Right.
10 times a day.
Hmm.
That's one thing. But when he asked her, "And what is that?" he was touching on and really pulling back the layers of, what does that look like for you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What does that look like for you? And you have to be specific about it, in keeping with what we just said. It's this, but it's also this.
Hmm.
So you may need more than one thing. And what we just talked about, you need both.
You definitely do. And
Yeah.
if this hasn't been obvious yet, we have a wholehearted endorsement for Dr. Gary Chapman's framework called the 5 love languages. If you've never encountered it before, where have you been? But go get the book. Go watch
Yeah.
it on YouTube. You can take a
Yeah.
free assessment on their website now online. They're just giving you lots of resources away because they want the world to communicate more clearly how each other receives love, so that we can be in more harmonious relationships. Remember, the framework we gave you, they're not competing. They're complementary to the love languages for sure. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, everybody, lean in, because this is what we teased.
Oh yeah,
Something
here we go.
happened.
It's
Something
time.
happened. It's time. Something happened in 2003.
Yeah.
And listen, multiple listeners requested this
Okay.
because they've heard you talk about it. They've heard you seed it. And, you've mentioned the firing story a few times in the previous episodes that we've had,
Yeah.
losing the ministry position. And I want to hear that story in full. I think it'll benefit everybody to kind of have the context, the fuller context around it. So what actually happened? And more importantly,
Hmm.
what did it teach you?
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll be careful.
Hmm.
I'm always careful with the story. I think, and there's a reason behind it. I'm sure Henry understands why I'm being careful, but
Yeah.
I'm for the audience, I'm partly being careful because it has so much weight to it in my life. I mean, it really created, we'll call it an event. You know what I mean? It created like a turning point, if you will, in my
Yeah.
life and in my, in my work, in my faith, in my relationships. It created a gigantic turning point in my life. I wrote about how big of a deal it was in my book called Your Best Is Next. So I give it more teeth in the book as well. But today I'll get a little more detailed than even I did back then, because I was a little more afraid of being extremely vulnerable about the story. I wanted to make sure that when I told it, that I was telling it to serve you. I don't want to just air out my dirty laundry or make complaints about people who were rotten, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like I'm settling a score, or that anyone has to be a supervillain in order for, the drama to take place. I just wanted everybody to feel served by the story, right? So,
Well, and I want you to go to the beginning
Okay.
where it starts, but I'll tag this onto what you just said. Your story, you can tell how your story has served you without vilifying them.
agreed. Yeah.
And I want our listeners and viewers to hear that, because you're going to have to mine your own story and do the hard work around your own story. And when you're at a place to tell it, you can tell it from a position of service
Yes.
to those who are listening that's going to benefit from it, but you're not doing it to vilify them, or, as Jeremy just said, to settle a score. So
Yeah.
let's go, Jay.
That's good, bro. And actually what you just said reminds me of how I arrived at telling the story in the first place, which was Dr. Brene Brown, listening to her on a podcast way back in the day. And I remember it really well because I was walking through my neighborhood and I heard her say, "You're only prepared to share your story, the one that really changed you, the one that hurt you the most. You're only able to tell that story in a teaching way when you can tell it without any negative emotions, and when you can tell it without reacting or being triggered, right? That means you've healed and you've moved on, and now you can do a post-mortem on it and let everybody know what was actually happening. You know what I mean?
Or I'll frame it this way: you can tell it without bleeding all over. You're
Yes,
not
without
bleeding all
bleeding.
over the place while you're telling it.
That's a great way to say it. Yeah. All right. So, July of 2003. July of 2003. This would be 23 years ago now, right? I was in the upswing of what I thought was my calling. I felt it in my core. I had been on staff at our local church as the youth pastor since January of that year. So just in January, I had started as a paid youth pastor. Now, before that, a whole year before that, I had served as the youth pastor as a volunteer. So I had fought hard to get into the position that I was in. I had to make some difficult decisions to let go of a former career so that I could embrace a new one. I had taken some risks with our family finances as a result. So it was a hard time, but it had resulted in what I had imagined was my calling. And I was embracing and moving into a large period of what I would call personal growth, spiritual growth, leadership growth, definitely leadership growth. I felt great. I was genuinely living in my purpose. I was creating, I was leading, and I was happy. Okay. And then one day that changed. Now, in retrospect, I would say For the dramatic purposes of the story, I would say in one day it all changed. And that's true. But when you look back at your story, you realize, wait, the signs were there.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
didn't pay attention, right?
It was
The signs
building.
were
Yeah.
there for months. You just didn't pay attention. But in one day, it kind of shifted for us. I mean, Lisa and I had, because, you know, when you're a youth pastor, they don't just hire you, everybody. They're hiring your spouse as well, because you have to create an environment where you're providing an example for these students, for them to see and model your, you know, your way of being, the way of doing your relationship is a huge component of the example you're setting for the kids that are in your care. And Lisa and I were spending a week with these teens in Oklahoma City, which don't do that in July, by the way. It was really hot. Okay. Anyway, really hot. I mean, like 120 degrees. And that was way back then. Right. And right now it's hot everywhere. So, but we were in Oklahoma City with the teens for a week, having summer camp, having a good time. And we had returned on a Friday night in a, you know, chartered bus. And when we arrived at the church and all the kids' parents were there to pick them up, we had gotten off the bus last. Of course, that's what leaders do, right? When we get off last, make sure everybody's taken care of. We got off the bus. My boss was waiting for me. Now, it wasn't a surprise because I was taking care of one of his children on that trip. So I got off the bus and I figured he was just there to pick up his child. But instead, he said, you know, we're going to have a meeting on Sunday night. I want to make sure you're available. It's going to be at my house. And I remember the vibe. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, this isn't going to be good. And I remember very well, they left. And then Lisa and I were finally alone in the car, leaving after we'd packed everyone up and saying our goodbyes and making sure everybody got on their way. And I got in the car and we started to go back home. And I said, I'm getting fired. And she was like, what? And I'm like, he called this meeting. It was the look on his face. It was the emotion of it. I just know it. I feel it. Right. I was resolved about it. I kind of knew it. Right. I can handle it. It's the way I approached it. I can handle it. Right. I've been fired before, everybody. It's okay. You know? And I know I'll keep moving forward, but I mean, I knew right away that it was going to happen. And then, you know, that was Friday night. Saturday rolled around. We attended a party with a bunch of church folks. It was almost as if the staff already knew because of the way they were treating us. And I was like, well, this sucks because I know they know, you know what I mean? And then by Sunday night, which by the way, they made sure to use me on Sunday morning, everybody. But then by Sunday night, I was in their house and I was fired.
Wow. This is what I'm curious about.
Okay.
In hearing the nuances of what you just shared, in what ways was the delivery of that news difficult?
Well, that's a good question. It was just the way it happened. I mean, I told you about how my boss invited us to his house, which is odd anyway. If you're going to do something professional, you should do it at the place of business, right? If you're employed. We didn't know exactly what was coming and we didn't know how it was going to get delivered, but I knew it. I mean, I knew it in my soul, and I already told Lisa that I felt like this was happening. I wasn't even in the house a minute. And they had already started to direct us to the basement. Now you got to understand, my boss had 10 children, 10. Okay. I was interacting with his eldest, of the children of the family, as staff members, but he had some as young as 5, 6, and even a baby at the time. Right. So we were interacting with their family at different layers, different levels. Right. And his 5-year-old daughter at the time, she was already crying when I walked in the door. So I was like, okay, well, not only am I right, but I'm breaking this little girl's heart while I'm at it. You know what I mean? Okay, great. Right.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Lisa, by the way. So everybody loves my wife. I'm pretty sure everybody was grieving my wife being the one that was fired, not me. But you know, they ushered us downstairs. sat us in a couch, and they sat across from us, like to face us. So this would have been my boss and his wife, and then my best friend at the time, who was the assistant pastor, his eldest son, and his wife,
Okay.
who we spent almost all of our waking moments with. Okay, so you got to understand, this is not just a normal meeting. This is like your friends, stabbed you in the back, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just started going sideways real fast. I mean, I was sitting down for less than 5 minutes, and they were already letting me go, letting me know that I wasn't who they were looking for on their team, blah, 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 right? Using some corporate language at first. And I mean, for me, that was enough. I mean, like, that's good. I had a couple questions in my mind, about like logistical, practical stuff. But then I didn't even get to ask the questions. It just got worse from there. I mean, they spent at least 45 minutes to an hour going back and forth, telling me why I was being fired, why I was not of the character that they expected, why I was not the leader that that I thought I was, why I didn't really get called into this in the first place, why I should just hang this up and get another job, why I'd be better at doing something else. I mean, like, it was a lot. And then in the middle of that, my boss's wife got in front of my wife, got on her knees, and said, "I implore you to think about breaking up with your husband." What? Yeah, I mean, dude, it was insane. Insanity. All right. I was flabbergasted, right? I supposed it was coming, and I had less than 48 hours to prepare my soul for what was happening, but I had no idea it was going to be this bad. Like super condemning, like it's total verdict on my identity, on who I was, on my abilities. It was a character assassination, nothing short of it, right? And I remember very well looking at Lisa, because it happened in front of my wife, right? I mean,
that's the part that I'm still trying to wrap my mind around.
Yeah.
Wait. Not dude, not just that all of this is happening in front of your wife.
Yeah.
The condemning of your capability. As you said, you could have fired me Sunday morning.
Right.
You used my capability all day Sunday
Right.
before you did it.
Right.
And then not just a condemnation of your capability, but an attack on your character. And if along with that, it was happening in front of your wife.
Yes.
And then, then to say that she needed to consider
Yes.
no longer being married to you.
Yeah, bro, it was a lot. At some point I just clocked out. I mean, I was like having an out of body experience. You know what I mean? And I know it was an out of body experience because I remember very, very well looking over at my wife, who up until then was always a little bit like afraid of my anger. I had some anger problems growing up, and I'm a fiery personality like your wife. Me and Zena share that in common. I'm a very direct communicator, and I don't back off from confrontation, which is also my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. I think you're familiar with it, Henry. Yes. In that moment, she looked at me and she handed me the flamethrower, and she said, "It's time." You know what I mean? I mean, she basically did it with her eyes. You know what I mean? Like, if there's ever been a time that I want you to pull out the fire, this is it. You know what I mean?
It's like, make no mistake about it. If you play the role of, if there's roles of good cop and bad cop, make no mistake about it. You bad cop right now.
That's right. She was like, pull it out, buddy. This is the time. This is the time, right? Destruction is necessary, right?
Yeah.
And I remember looking at her. I described this much more detail in my book, but I remember looking at her and being almost out of my body, literally, and looking at myself and having this split-second conversation with my soul. Like, you've done it that way. You know the result. Maybe it's time to let the old way die. You know what I mean? Maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe this is an opportunity to grow. And I was like, really? Now? I mean, can't I just say my piece? And it was like, well, what good would it do? They've made up their mind about you. They've made up their
Yeah.
mind about, everything that's happening. You have no power or control of what's happening next. So
Yeah.
I remember it really, really well. Like, dude, what in the world is happening to me? Why is it happening? I mean, I was out of myself, but I still remember looking at Lisa and providing certainty in my eyes. I remember me staring at her and just looking at her like, we're going to be all right. I got this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I asked 2 questions. I remember it really well. The first question was, what about the kids? I just spent a whole week bonding with them. They shared their lives with me, like their
Mm-hmm.
dreams, their visions of the future.
Yeah.
When you have a week away with teenagers, on a camp like that, where you're sleeping in the same room and you're bunking and you're sharing shower rooms and all kinds of crazy stuff. You're sharing your
Yeah.
life with
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
and now I get off a bus and now you're letting me go. The guy that they had trusted is now gone. I mean, like, did you think this through? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm worried about those kids. I'm worried about their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they literally looked me in the eye and they were like, we didn't really have a plan for that. Oh, okay. They just hate me that much. All right.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and then the second question was just about my money. Cause you got to be about your money sometime,
Yeah.
hey, does this come with a severance package? Because I didn't expect this. So, I mean, I remember getting in the car, going home. You know, I won't even give the weirdest part of this story, because it's just too weird. But I mean, I actually ended up hanging out with our friends from the church that we had plans that night. We had plans, including the couple that I mentioned were our best friends in the room. They had plans with us that night. They did not cancel. They showed up.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we had to deal with it all night long, with our other friends who also just found out. Because they were shocked. We're talking about a group of 8, so like 4 couples. We always did everything together, and then boom. And then literally, dude, overnight, my life blew up. I mean, everything I had worked towards was gone. Every piece of title, of authority, of calling, all of it was gone, dude. It was gone in one night. It was over. And I remember having to ask, like, when can I come pick up my things? And they had the audacity to say, well, we'd like you to stay on for a couple of weeks. No,
Wow.
I got fired. I'm out. You know what I mean? You made your decision. You know what I mean? I had to call a friend of mine, believe it or not. I had to call a former youth pastor of mine who I knew had been let go of before. Because a church firing is a little different than a regular firing, everybody. It's your community. It's your faith-based community. It's where you're sharing life together with a bunch of people. And now they're saying you're no longer our chosen team member, but you can still stay at the church. So I'm like, that's not happening. Right.
Right.
So
right.
it's just a bizarre feeling. But I remember him telling me, instructing me, like, I know you're shocked right now and I know it's a lot, but here's 2 things I need you to do. I need you to be about the business of the business. I need you to make sure that you're taking care of your family. So make sure you get your money right, with the senior pastor. And then the second thing is, make sure you don't take any responsibility for what happened. Don't let them parade you in front of everyone and say it was your fault. You know what I mean? Make sure they take responsibility for their decision in front of the congregation, but particularly in front of the kids, so that the kids know it wasn't you leaving them all along. It wasn't a planned absence. It was just you're no longer with them, right? And I was like, that's smart advice. That's wise, What I didn't do, though, as I should have taken it a step further, I allowed the senior pastor to communicate to the kids, of course, because I was no longer around. And in front of the children, I got to say goodbye. So he did let us come one last time for the kids and say goodbye, and crying, hugs, all the things. And I got to watch what he said, which was he took responsibility for their decision, which was, we no longer think Jeremy's going to the best person for the job, basically, right? Of course the kids disagreed, but they're kids, and stuff's going on behind the scenes, right? But what I didn't do was I didn't show up on that Sunday to make sure that what he communicated to the congregation was the same, and it wasn't. Instead it went something like, I just need you to know that he's no longer with us, and it's not because he cheated on his wife, and it's not because he had an inappropriate relationship with any of the teenagers. That's literally what he said.
Wow.
And then my life blew up in a way I didn't even expect. It got so much worse. I had calls from parents for the next 4 months. Some of them would get, it was lag time. Like they would find out later, and
Yeah.
they're like, "What do
Yeah.
you mean did you touch my daughter?" I'm like, "Oh my God, what is happening?"
Really?
You know what I mean? Like
Wow.
yeah, dude, it was crazy. I spent like 18 months fielding rumors because, churches are tied together in a certain area. So
Mm-hmm.
people go to
Mm-hmm.
work with each other, they see each other. I mean, I had stuff going for a long time. My reputation was blasted, right?
Wow.
And all of it was, in retrospect, all of it was designed for me to, it was like ego death, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
death of my ego. It was the death of the identity I had built around being that leader or that person. And you lost 500 friends in one night. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And worse than that, you ended up having some of them become enemies of you because they believed, or they didn't really believe, or let's say they filled in the blanks that were offered in
Yeah.
the space. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was bizarre.
And I'm thinking, you know, in no uncertain terms, they felt they had to pick a side.
Yeah, as people do when you're in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't going to defend myself. That was something that was huge growing here, Henry. I mean, huge growing through this whole thing. But I mean, rushing to defend yourself is just communicating to the other people that you're insecure about what's happened, or that you could have changed the outcome. I mean, I couldn't have changed anything. I don't have anything to prove. You know what I mean? I was doing a great job, as evidenced by the connections we were making with the kids, and we were growing, right, in attendance. Not to mention we were very well liked in the congregation, which in retrospect is exactly why I was let go. I was a threat to the authority of the senior pastor, or the likability, the connectedness of the senior pastor to the rest of the congregation. He felt like I was a threat. I get it. I get it now. I mean, it's very ego driven, but I get it, right? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. I can
it
see
sent me
that.
on a spiral. At first, it was depression. Uh, how did this happen? Why am I so horribly, flawed? I can't keep the calling that I mean, I felt that my faith was wrapped up in it. I felt like my whole life with God
Yeah.
was wrapped up in
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
because it's church, right? So there was all the God questions. Well, how could you let this happen? I can't believe this happened. How could you not stop it? All the stuff that you might go through with any other type of loss or, grief. Um, but the result of all of this really came down to, the questions of, who am I then? Who am I if I'm not what I'm doing? Who am I if my title's no longer attached to what I do in this world, right? Um, yeah, that's the biggest
Yeah. Yeah.
questions, right?
And here's what I want to insert here, because even as we are doing these episodes of answering the listener questions, and they've heard us navigate our way through these episodes, and we talk a lot about and have talked a lot about identity. And when I hear you frame it that way, who am I? That literally speaks to identity. Like you said, not being defined by what you do, the title you had, um, how you are viewed in terms of the calling, the capability, all of that stuff, but who are you? And knowing you like I know you, when these things happen in your life,
Yeah.
it puts you on this search. It you dig in. I mean, you feel it, it hurt, all the emotions, no
Mhm.
doubt.
Yeah.
And not even getting to even talk about how you and Lisa navigated this together, let alone separately.
Yeah.
Her own set of feelings,
Sure.
in light of witnessing this, your
Hmm.
own set of feelings in light of having your wife watch this happen, all of
Yeah.
those things.
It was a lot.
But
Yeah.
when it came to that question of who am I,
Yeah.
what did you find? What did you find?
Well, I mean, the long of it was that I had been building my identity on a foundation that could be removed. from me. It was external instead of internal, right? It was titles, it was roles, it was the income, right? It was the approval. All of that collapsed in that fateful, moment. And it kept collapsing for the next 12 to 18 months, right? And underneath that collapse, underneath the rubble, if you will, of everything that fell down was what's left. What's left of me then? And what's left is my design. What's left is who I am. What's
Yeah.
left is who you are before the role told you who you were, before the people approved of that title that they gave you. And that's what I found to be true about myself. And no one can take that away from me, dude. And that's what every single episode of this podcast has been pointing towards. This is where that foundation of strength and authority comes from inside my soul, is knowing very well who I am at the deepest level. When all of it's been stripped away, I'm still who I am. I know who I am. Serve, support, sacrifice, stand. Those are the architecture of my identity. But I know who Jeremy is. I know who I am at the deepest core of my being. You can't shake me. I've built an unshakable identity, right?
Yeah.
And all of the stuff we've been sharing with you so far, and all the stuff you can expect from us in the future, is coming from this place, from the answers that came from those questions that started in July of 2003.
Wow. Wow. Man, first of all, I want to, we talk about these things offline but for you to share it the way that you just shared it, I want to commend you on that. And me commending you is connecting it back to what we said when we started it. It was to serve the listeners.
Yeah.
It was to serve the listeners. And the question that I want them to hear and maybe even take away from this segment is, who are you when it's all stripped away? Who are you when it's all stripped away? I think about that in my 21-year military career. Okay, I retired. I'm no longer Master Sergeant Ballard. I'm no, and again, some things can be stripped away from you, like in the fashion that you described. Other things, just through the progression, through the iteration of life, through the seasons of life, you're no longer that. You're no longer that person living in that season of life. You have progressed, you have moved on. And so who are you when it's all stripped away? Powerful, powerful question to set with.
It is. And I hope everybody arrives at an answer that's, without having to go through the experience of literally having it all stripped away, right? But you are always who you were designed to be at your core. That never leaves you. You can get caught in a trap. We called it the performance trap, right? You can get caught in that performance trap. You can get caught in the externality of life. You can think about titles and roles and approval and money and success and all of that stuff. But when all that stuff is gone, it can't take away your design. It can't take away your architecture. It can't take away the core of who you are. And that, I think, is the most massive lesson to learn from all of it. Right?
Powerful. So question number 4, here's where we are now for this episode and answering these questions. And this one, it echoes episode 20 when he goes missing. We dealt with that in that particular episode, talking about the man. And so the listener asks, you said the shadow of the Zakar is passive, because we gave the distinction between the light and the shadow. The shadow of the Zakar is passive. But what about men who are highly active? I mean, they can be labeled as hustling, building, working constantly, but still somehow, in some way, they're absent. That doesn't look passive from the outside. So this is one of the most important questions I believe that we've gotten, because it describes many men who literally think they're doing everything right.
Yeah.
And on some level, it may just be they're doing all they know to do, but But I like this question. So what do you say about that? Because you just talked about the performance trap.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because that's where I was. I was stuck in the performance trap as well, right? I mean, the performance trap and the shadow of the Zakar, they aren't always the same thing, but
Mm,
they often produce the same result. And that's a man who is physically present and relationally or emotionally absent.
mm,
Okay. They kind of always
yeah.
produce that result. The man who's hustling, building, working constantly, like you described it, uh, that's not passivity in the behavioral sense. So when you look at someone's life, it doesn't look passive, it looks active, right? In the functional sense,
Uh-huh.
it is. But it's passive in the emotional relational sense. He's withholding his presence from the people who need him the most. He's pouring himself into a role, a business, a mission, uh, and the house he's supposed to be the foundation for has no foundation because he's gone. He's somewhere else. Even when he's home, he's not home. He's thinking about how he can contribute to the job, how he can get more approval, how he can get more likes, more wins, more money. He's not home when he's home. That's the result of the performance trap and the shadows of the Zakar in a man when he's that's what it means to be passive, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah,
there,
yeah.
but you're not there.
Yeah, that's a powerful way to put it. And here's what I'm hearing when I listen to that. As devastating as it is, and it is that, it's also clarifying at the same time, because now, as devastating as it gives you an opportunity to wrap your mind around what's actually happened.
Yeah. That's a good point. This is a recollection of what we taught you, though. But I mean, like, remember in the story in Genesis, Adam was there. He was standing on her shoulder. He was present at that tree, but he was silent. Remember, the word translated with her was Ima in Genesis, and he was with her. He was on her shoulder. He just wasn't engaged in anything. He was passive. Instead of standing up for what was right, he was standing back and letting things happen in front of him. Um, that's the original template of the busy but absent man. I'm busy, but I'm absent. And you can be busy, right? And be purposeless at the same time.
Right.
You can be busy and not be functioning in what it is that you've been called to function in. Right? You're showing up. You're just not functioning in your design. You're not functioning in the way that you've been made to do it. I mean, this happens to all of us at some point in time. And this is why, I mean, obviously, I was just sharing my story of how my life turned around in the moments of my greatest darkness. Uh, Zakar isn't just about what you're building, it's about who you're building it for.
Yeah.
Are the people in your house, your actual house, are they experiencing you as the foundation they can stand on, that they can rely on?
Mm. That's good. So when it comes to the brothers, when it comes to the men, what's the question that every man needs to ask himself about this?
I mean, I think probably a good question would be an extension of what I just said. I mean, ask the people who live with you for feedback. Do you feel like you can come to me? Not am I providing? Not if I am I providing income? Not am I working hard? Because those things are probably all true. But ask them instead, do you feel like you can bring me your heart? Do you feel like you can
Yeah,
bring me a real conversation? The things that are
yeah,
inside of you, the questions that you have? Because guys, the foundation's job isn't to be impressive, contrary to popular belief. It's to be stable, reliable. And stable is an accessible thing. If something is
yeah.
stable, it's always accessible. If I know it's there, I can always return to it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I think that's
Yeah.
the key. That's the question that these guys have got to ask themselves to get out of the trap. They're not passive in an behavioral way. They're passive in an emotional, relational way. And that's how you get back, is by being that foundation that people can come and rely
Good. Good.
It's a lot, dude.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I don't want to step over what you just said with my comments, because it is a lot, and it is something that sometimes we just have to take in and maybe even set in for it really to land. And so to our listeners, to our viewers, that was a pregnant pause, if you will. That was a pregnant pause. That was in our biblical language, that was a Selah moment. It's like,
Yes, yes. Think on
yeah,
this.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, this is our last question of the episode, and it actually is for you, Henry.
Okay.
So I get to turn the tables here because I've been fielding a lot of this, but there's been some curiosity about some of the way you've been processing this information. This is how it came to us, right? Henry, you've been the learner in the room. So after all of this identity content, did anything surprise you? What stood out when hearing it from your perspective, and did anything you heard cause any changes in you? So I'm just going to turn you loose and let you give everybody what's happening over in your end.
Okay. Well, I won't give my 2005 story. We'll be here for another hour.
Okay,
So
good,
it's
good.
like that.
We'll do that on
We'll
another
do that.
episode.
Yeah, we'll do that on another episode. But no, man, remember, this is the second time I'm hearing this material.
Mm-hmm.
The first time is when Jeremy shared it with me back in 2014. After he had first recorded and did the teaching and wanted my feedback. And so, it's not the first time I'm hearing it, but it was different this time. And it was different this time as the question was posed from this perspective. It reinforced for me the language that I need even now to connect the dots with where I am in my life and the context in which I live, and that is the blended family dynamic.
Mm.
And I believe that's the beauty of the Breakthrough Bros. And as much as Jeremy and I have gone through our certifications together and did a lot of our learnings together, wrote books, we're both approaching it from unique lenses in terms of the family dynamic. And so for me, it reinforced hearing it again, sitting with everybody else, learning. It reinforced for me the context of where I am, the blended family. And by that, I mean this: each Zakar function, for me, it begs the same question. And it's, how am I showing up in this function, in my context, in my blended family dynamic? And the one word for how I believe it reinforced and yet helped me to show up is this: just remain consistent. It's consistency. When you talk about the four functions, and when you think about the four functions, the serve, support, sacrifice, and stand, am I consistent in how I'm serving? Am I consistent in how I'm serving, no doubt, my wife? Am I consistent in how I'm serving, my children, all of them, the ones that I've gained by marriage, the ones that are my biological? Am I consistent in serving them? Am I consistent in the support I give? The sacrifices I make, and then even how I stand. Am I being consistent? So to hear it again, it reinforced that. And it really reminds me, because now all of my kids, no doubt, are grown. Some of my grandkids are grown. Fun fact, I have two great grandkids. I know brother don't look it. I know he's well, but got two great grandkids. But
Yeah.
listen to me, for all of them, it's the consistency. And my 16-year-old granddaughter, then she just turned 17, she wrote me a letter, a short note, just giving her expression to me of what I'll label as just appreciation from her observation of who I am. And she talked about how brought her to school and did the homework, did all of those things. But there were certain lines in there that stood out. And one of them was that she knows that I'm her biggest supporter, that I was always there for her, Even when she was wrong, I would still vouch for her, but let me clean that up. Not vouch for her in that I would tell her she was right when she was wrong, but deal with her from a standpoint of, now what's the lesson in this? You're going to have to own it. You can't keep telling the same story. Let me rephrase. You can't keep lying. You're going to have to own, because the alternative is this. So we would go through those dynamics, and in the note she said, you are not just my grandfather, you're not just the pastor, you're my best friend. You're the one that I know that I can tell anything to without judgment, and you're going to give me the support. You'll make the sacrifices, and you'll stand with me. And so that was refreshing, because to know that what I endeavored to embody in light of what Jeremy taught through this process and what you all heard for the first time, me hearing it years ago, but it just reaffirmed and reinforced for me, I have to keep showing up the way that I know I'm supposed to show up, and just not be moved by all the things that can make me, and I'll end with this, that can make me want to second guess what I'm doing. Because I said, she wrote that as a note to me.
Yeah.
She could have never written it, and I would have never heard it. But to have the great fortune to hear what, and Jeremy, your question, what does other people think of you? How do they see you showing up?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we can be hard on ourselves when we don't think that we're measuring up.
Yeah.
But the very people who are the recipients of it, they're able to validate it like no one else.
Man, that was so good. Like, I'm so proud of your granddaughter for sharing that with you too. And obviously, bro, I mean, you're doing something right. You're literally the embodiment of our breakthrough challenge today, by the way. So, I mean, I'm always fortunate, that I get to share all of this podcasting with my bro here. I mean, we were sharing bro time anyway, but now we get to do it in front of everybody, which is so much fun. But man, I just appreciate you, man. I mean, that's a really cool thing to hear from your granddaughter. You've created the openness, the safe space, and you've guarded that space, and helped her through life, and she's appreciating that. I think that's so lovely, man. That's awesome. So okay,
now everybody, wait, everybody stick with us now. Don't check out. You gotta stay with us, because you're gonna hear some episodes where, Jeremy and I will be to each other like, but
might be coming next week.
We might have different perspectives, different frames of reference. It's like, Jay, I hear you, but so as much as, again, thank you, man, because I appreciate being able to do this with you. So let's get our breakthrough challenge.
Let's do it
for this episode.
Let's get it on,
so that we help everybody, our listeners and our viewers. Here's what we want you to do. This week's breakthrough challenge is this: ask one person who lives with you, or loves you deeply, loves you closely, however you frame it. Do you feel like you can come to me with the real thing? Do you feel like you can come? That's the question. Do you feel like you can come to me with the real thing? And then just listen. That's the task. Just listen. Don't explain. Don't defend. Don't fix it in the moment, whatever the answer is. No, just receive what they say. Because the foundation that's going to provide you, it's going to do some important work. It's going to do important work. It's going to help you to locate where you are. And where you want to be, and being that foundation is to make sure that you are accessible. Jeremy talked about it just a moment ago. You're not there to impress. You're not there to win, Father of the Year, Man of the Year, Woman of the Year, whatever. No, you have to understand this is a journey of growth, and asking the tough questions. Jeremy just talked about it. We'll have to do a whole episode on just the questions, not that we ask other people, but that we ask ourselves, but it's the questions. And we want you to sit with that. So I'll give it to you again. You need to ask the question to someone who loves you, someone who's close to you. Do you feel like I can come to you with the real thing?
Yeah. Great question. And it's a great challenge, everybody. So I hope that you choose to accept it. And if you do, and you have a breakthrough, I hope you choose to share it with us here on the Breakthrough Bros in the comments. Send us a note, email, hello@thebreakthroughbros.com. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, next week, we got one more of these Q&A shows left, at least in the hopper. We might have more going into the future. Never know. Keep sending us questions, man. We'll do another one for sure. But next week's the one where we start going into territory that our show has largely left untouched. We're going to be talking about mental health and mindset, how it relates to coaching, how coaching is a different modality than others. We're going to be talking about our personal faith journeys, possibly, and what the non-faith even. It's the listener who's genuinely tried everything and is still stuck, right? We're going to address that person, and we're going to take an honest look back at 6 months of podcasting together, because it has been a journey, my friend.
Yeah. And I believe that it may very well be the most important and yet honest conversation that we've had yet.
You can rely on one thing from us, everybody. It's honesty, maybe to a fault, right? Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Subscribe wherever you are right now. Just click that subscribe button, and we will see you next week. All right. So let's recap today's concept. I'm going to get you out of here. All right. Today's breakthrough concept is your design. It can't be fired. It can't be divorced. It can't be demoted. It can't be discredited. It was in you before the role told you who you are. It was in you before you received the title or the applause, and it will be there after.
Absolutely. And listen, the question isn't what you lost. I know sometimes that's what we can fixate on, and that's the season that we may be navigating. But the question isn't what you lost. It's who you still are.
So good, man. Thank you, everyone, for spending part of your day with us. We're always grateful when you choose to grow with us.
Hey, and if this episode added value to your life, remember what's instructive for one is instructive for all. And if you saw yourself in these questions and received benefit from the answers, leave us a review, share it with a friend, and by all means, subscribe. Do it right now. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next.
Yeah. And don't forget to head over to our website, thebreakthroughbros.com, to subscribe to our free weekly newsletter, The Breakthrough Brief, where we give leadership, relationship, and personal growth some teeth, and we give it some action steps, and we help you move forward every single week. Don't miss out on that. It's free, and you can grab it anytime you want. Just head over to thebreakthroughbros.com.
And remember, everybody, your breakthrough is closer than you think.
We'll see you next time.
Peace, everybody.